Hello again, and a very, very warm welcome to Sunday Thoughts from Ard, Trey and Desecrate. Thank you again for taking time to join with us. We really appreciate the fact that so many of you at home take time late on Saturday night or on Sunday or later in the week to check in for our Sunday Thoughts. I have more wise words for you this week, or perhaps more accurately, more words on the subject of wisdom. Because that was our theme for last week, and the theme continues over into this week. And we're going to be thinking about two Bible readings, one from the Old Testament, from the book of Proverbs chapter 8, and one from the New Testament, Paul's words from his letter to Colossians chapter 1. And as hopefully you'll see, Paul's words to the Colossians shine some really interesting light on those really ancient words from Proverbs chapter 8. I don't know if you have anyone in your circle of friends called Sophia, or Sophie. Sophia is actually the Greek word for wisdom. Now, it's really interesting that in Proverbs chapter 8, wisdom is pictured as being a lady who's out in the middle of a really busy street. Sometimes whenever I am trying to get to the heart of what a Bible writer really meant whenever they wrote, I look at different translations or paraphrases. A man called Eugene Peterson was an American theologian, a Presbyterian, and well-known writer. And he's perhaps best known for his translation of the Bible called The Message. Here's Eugene Peterson's take on Proverbs chapter 8, Lady Wisdom, read for us today by Lady Vicky.
This is a reading from Proverbs 8 and from a translation of the Bible called The Message. Do you hear Lady Wisdom calling? Can you hear Madam Insight raising her voice? She's taken her stand at First and Main and at the busiest intersection, right in the city square where the traffic is thickest. She shouts, "You! I'm talking to all of you, everyone out there on the streets. Listen, you idiots, learn good sense. You blockheads, shape up. Don't miss a word of this. I'm telling you how to live well. I'm telling you how to live at your best. God sovereignly made me, the first, the basic, before he did anything else. I was brought into being a long time ago, well before Earth got its start. I arrived on the scene before ocean, yes, even before springs, rivers and lakes, before mountains were sculpted and hills took shape. I was already there, newborn. Long before God stretched out Earth's horizons and tended to the minute details of soil and weather, and sky met firmly in place, I was there. When he mapped and gave borders to wild ocean, built the vast vault of heaven, and installed the fountains that fed ocean. When he drew a boundary for sea, posted a sign that said no trespassing, and then staked out Earth's foundations, I was right there with him, making sure everything fit. Day after day I was there, with my joyful applause, always enjoying his company, delighted with the world of things and creatures, happily celebrating the human family.
The ancients wrote of wisdom personified. They wrote as wisdom as being something that was created by God even before the foundations of the earth were laid. Think about that. Wisdom, whatever it is, has been around for a long, long time. So, I want to point out a few things about how wisdom is presented to us in Proverbs chapter 8. Now, as I mentioned last week, wisdom is the sort of key theme in the book of Proverbs. Indeed, the book of Proverbs is one of 5 wisdom books contained in our collection that we call the Old Testament. And here, as I've said, wisdom is presented to us as being like a Lady Wisdom, God's handmaid. Secondly, the whole of creation, according to the writer of Proverbs 8, the whole of creation of which we are part, was made with God through his wisdom. So somehow or other, this thing we call wisdom was active in the whole process of creation. You know, whenever the universe was created, wisdom was there before the mountains were born. Wisdom was there before the oceans were created. Wisdom was there before the sky was set in place. What is it that the writer of Proverbs wants us to know? Well, that wisdom is really old, and that wisdom was active in bringing us here today as part of creation. It's really interesting that as the writer of Proverbs pictures wisdom, they point out where she is to be found. Not in a temple or in a place of worship. Not in a school where trainee rabbis or priests are huddled over desks, poking through old literature, something like that. Wisdom is to be found right in the middle of the busy hustle and bustle of gritty city life. In the city square where the traffic is thickest is how Eugene Peterson translates that part of Proverbs 8. I love verse 35 though. The writer says this, and this is the key, I think, to this. When you find me, you find real life. In other words, when you discover what it means to live wisely, then life takes on a whole different meaning. You live life more as a life lived to the full. Wisdom loves life, the very gift of life on earth. Again, Eugene Peterson's translation. Here's wisdom speaking. Day after day I was there with my joyful applause, always enjoying his company, delighted with the world of things and creatures, happily celebrating the entire human family. We all love the idea of wisdom, at least I do, but being wise takes a lifetime. There are no shortcuts. Someone I read this week wrote these words. The Bible speaks with many voices about wisdom. We need a lifetime of listening to the many voices of wisdom to work some wisdom into our own lives. There are no quick fixes, I'm afraid, if you want to be wise. But Lady Wisdom, what a woman. In a moment, we'll look at our second reading today from Colossians chapter 1. But first of all, a hymn. One from our own country, the country of Ireland, written many, many years ago. A hymn rich in wisdom, rich in truth. Be thou my vision, O Lord of my heart. Many thanks to Grace and Russell for all the music that they're producing to help with our Sunday thoughts, and indeed to others involved in music production. We really value all that they do. So we all want a life worth living. We all want, I'm sure, to pursue wisdom. The problem is that the search for wisdom can sometimes seem very confusing. It seems there are so many potential pathways to becoming wise. One blogger I read in the past week puts it like this: I want to be wise, but in a time and a place and a culture with 1,000 competing ideologies and truth claims, we don't know anymore what wisdom and truth look like. I'm sure some of you can identify with that particular writer. The New Testament, though, and particularly Colossians chapter 1, sheds some really interesting light on wisdom. But first of all, a thought from one of our Christmas readings, because John, in the prologue to his gospel, also sheds some light on wisdom. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was with God in the beginning. Through him, all things were made. Without him, nothing was made that has been made. That's John at the beginning of his book that we call John's Gospel, pointing out that something or someone was with God at the very beginning, and through him, this Word, all things were made. Jesus here is being described as the Word of God, and later on John will say that the Word became flesh and dwelt among us, made his dwelling among us just for a short time on planet Earth. If you listened last week, then you'll probably remember that I said that early Christians tended to fuse together this idea of wisdom with a person, the person of Jesus Christ. To early Christians, wisdom was not just a concept, something to search for and maybe gradually build into your life. But rather, to early Christians, wisdom found its fullest expression, if you like, in the person of Jesus, the Word of God made flesh. To them, wisdom became a person in Jesus. And this is what Paul is getting at, I think, in his letter to the Colossians in Turkey. Listen to this from Colossians 1. He's talking about Jesus. For everything, absolutely everything above and below, visible and invisible, rank after rank of angels, everything got started in him and finds its purpose in him. He was there before any of it came into existence, and he holds it all together right up to the moment. And when it comes to the church, he organizes and holds it together like a head does the body. He was supreme in the beginning, leading the resurrection parade. He is supreme in the end. From beginning to end, he, that is Jesus, is there. Again, this translation from the Message from Eugene Peterson. When Paul wrote those words to his Turkish friends in the city of Colossae, he was showing them that Jesus Christ is the Word of God, the wisdom of God, the one who was there from the very beginning, and that all things were made and exist through him. When we look at Jesus, you see, it shows God in a human light. In him, we see all the attributes of God wrapped up in a person. When we look at Jesus, we see love wrapped up in a person. When we look at Jesus, we see truth wrapped up in a person. When we look at Jesus, we see grace wrapped up in a person. And guess what? When we look at Jesus, we see wisdom wrapped up in a person. Thank you for listening. Stay safe. God bless.